So the first thing you are going to need to do in your painting techniques project is to set up your tube papers. Now you are going to want to use the large 12 by 18 watercolor paper out of your tube. So for the first page, there are going to be two things that you are going to need to do. We're going to need a series of 4 by 4 squares as well as a series of smaller squares. So remember, when we're doing straight lines, we make two marks the same distance across on the paper. And then we're going to line those up, and then we will connect them to make our straight line. So there's my first straight line. The second one here is going to be a second straight line. So we want our squares to be 4 inches. So I am measuring down 4 inches from that first line that I drew. It is really important that you do not eyeball this. It is very easy to draw a crooked line, so trust the 2-dot method. Now I've turned the paper so that it's vertical, and I am going to do 2 more dots, one at 4 inches and then the second at 8 inches. Moving my ruler, making a second series of dots at 4 and 8. And then using my ruler to connect both of those dots together. And what will happen here is then I will have 6 4-inch squares. So this is the top of your first paper. As you can see, I've got 6 4-inch squares. Now I'm going to turn the paper on its side. And again, remember, use the paper, make the paper do the hard work, make the ruler do the hard work. Now I've got a 10-inch space here. So what I would like to do is kind of give an equal amount of space between the top and the bottom. So in order to do that, I am going to put about a 1/2 inch at the top and a 1/2 inch at the bottom. So I'm going to put my marks at, starting at 1/2 inch, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, 6.5, 7.5, 8.5, and 9.5. That'll give me some space at the top and the bottom so that this series of boxes isn't right up against the ones, the 4-inch boxes above it. So again, repeating that process. We want to create a series of 1-inch boxes, which is why I am using the measurement that I am. Connecting the two lines as always in order to get my straight line. Sorry guys, you see a little bit of my head there. Trying to make sure that I am hitting both of those lines. It's a little bit tricky when the camera is directly over where I need to be looking. So we only need 5 rows. So I am going to skip every other row, and I'm going to label them 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's just going to give me some breathing space in between these gradation scales that I'm going to create. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start to make my vertical lines. Now I have 12 inches across here, and I am going to need 7 1-inch boxes. So I am going to put 2.5 inches on each side so that my gradation scales are centered directly in the middle of my paper. If you choose not to do this, that is totally fine. If you grid out the entire thing, it's also totally fine. You can always erase the lines that you don't need. This is just the way I decided to do that. So now I'm going to connect those lines in order to start my gradation scales. And then what I will continue to do is then mark 1-inch sections. Sorry, guys, my head in the way once again. I will continue to mark 1-inch sections across until I have 7 1-inch squares. Now, page 2 is actually a lot easier. So page 1 is the hardest page because of those gradation scales that we are doing. Page 2 is very simple. We are just going to be marking 4-inch squares. So we're going to repeat the exact process that we did on the previous page, except now we are going to do more squares. So instead of just the 2 rows, we will have 4 rows of 4-inch squares. So again, I know I'm a broken record, lining up those 2 dots that you've created across your paper and connecting them in order to make your 4-inch bands. Then you'll rotate the paper, repeat the process, making more 4-inch bands.